Zoom. Oh, live. We're going live. To where?
Yeah. I couldn't find my earbuds, so I have to wear my air traffic controller things.
I was gonna say you look so much cooler. You know, you look like real legit studio with your earphones.
Yeah. I just need the big, huge microphone right here.
Yes. Isn't there one right there? You
Screen.
can use it as a prop.
Here, let me get it.
Yeah. Put it up in front. Use it as a prop. Make it look super legit.
It's actually a light bulb.
Oh my gosh. That's so awesome. Yes.
We should do it.
Yes. That's great. I don't have anything fun like that. I have a couple of coffee mugs that I can pretend like.
There.
That's really good. That's really good.
Yeah. I'll just say, we're a little low on tech here, so
yeah,
I'm using a fluorescent light bulb as a microphone.
And I'm operating out of a warehouse, some storage room in a warehouse in the darker parts of Ambridge, Pennsylvania.
Oh my gosh, yeah. So are we live? Are we on? Are we ready to go?
What are we live to? Where are we, like, who is seeing us?
Well, we're not live. I mean, like, in other words, are we being recorded now? We're not going live. I don't think. Lee, we going live? I thought we were just kind of recording this one.
I see a little thing that says live up in the top left corner.
What's he saying? I can't hear him.
Who?
Lee. Is he on the phone or something? Well, I guess we're recording now.
Let me close my door real quick.
Yeah.
I guess the computer doesn't have a good mic. I didn't know this one. We're broadcasting to a private YouTube channel right now.
Oh, gotcha.
So it's just recorded.
Just want to leave it open a crack.
You can go back and watch it, but nobody else is watching.
Gotcha. We're broadcasting to a private YouTube channel.
Oh, nice.
And you can't hear me, I guess, so that's why I'm doing this.
Oh, okay. I'm going to use this right here.
I don't like my background.
Oh, it'll get better. I don't know how you turn the light on, actually.
I'm trying to figure out a good view for me. No.
Yeah. Well, I lifted up. Yeah, you're fine.
Okay.
You're fine. We'll
just want to make sure it's getting the best side.
Yeah. Well,
that the light is coming on my best side.
I think it's kind of funny because you have this sort of cowboy thing going on, like with your
yes,
your mask. But it looks like your bandana.
Yeah, I know. I came straight from food distribution, so I'm very rugged looking.
Yeah, I can see. Hair is wild.
Untamed is the theme I'm going for.
Well, hey, that's good. For that too.
Yes.
Yeah, I thought I would sport the preambula colors.
Oh my! Blue. Did you do that intentionally?
I thought, what the heck, just go.
Wow.
Oh, go orange and blue. That's my high school colors.
Oh my gosh! It's preambula colors.
It was the color of my room when I was a kid.
This thing is really deeply ingrained in you.
Did I ever tell you that story? So my mom was gonna redo my brother's room and give it to me when he went to college. So I went away for like a weekend for something, and I came back, and there was this bright, very royal blue shag rug in the room with this three white walls and this big orange wall. And I was like, how did you come up with those colors? Like, it seems so random to me. But anyway, then Eastside Catholic opened up a year or two later, and the colors were orange and blue, and I was like,
Wow.
So anyway, orange and blue, and then in Denver, it's kind of the Denver.
Yes, my gosh, there is something very divine running through all of this.
I suppose. I suppose.
Wow.
Orange and blue, yeah.
My favorite color is yellow.
Crusaders.
It's yellow.
Yellow?
Yeah.
Really?
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
You do have a yellow wall in your house.
I do. I love, but it's yellow clothing is it's hard to wear yellow clothing.
Yeah, I would agree.
Especially
as a guy. Yeah.
Yes.
I used to have this bright yellow corduroy shirt that was from Eddie Bauer.
Of course.
When I got, it's funny because I was in the goth mode, in late high school, early college, and I had the mullet and all that. And, button my shirt all the way up, and my mom was so disconcerted by this that I decided to go preppy again. And at the end of my freshman year in college. And so I went and got my hair cut, and I went out and I bought all these bright clothes. So I got like a turquoise plaid shirt, and I got a lemon yellow corduroy shirt from Eddie Bauer. I came in with that on, and I was like, "Okay, Mom, how's this? Are you okay?
Wow.
Are we okay now?"
That's bold.
Yeah.
That's bold.
Yeah, it happened. It happened on the heels of coming back from the dermatologist, and my mom said, "So, what did Dr. Shore or Dr. I can't remember, Harnish have to say about your hair?" And I stopped. I'm like, "What?" She's like, "What did Dr. Harnish say about your hair?" I was like, "Mom, Dr. Harnish didn't say anything about my hair, but he did tell me that my face was clearing up well." And she's like, "Oh, did I say that?" I'm like, "If you're really that worried about it, I will go and get my hair cut." So I went and got my hair cut.
Oh my, wow.
Bright colors. Got rid of the goth. Shedded the goth.
Yeah. See, I went through a phase where being from such a large family, are you still on? Are you still on there?
I don't know. I mean, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, they're just playing with the cameras.
I see. So being from such a large family, we were not big supporters of Eddie Bauer and J. Crew. However, sometimes I was able to go to TJ Maxx and find myself like a misstitched Eddie Bauer sweater, perhaps.
Oh,
and,
yeah, that's right.
That was like a gold mine. That was a gold mine whenever I would find something like that. And but I also I bought weird stuff. Like I bought a black hat that had a metal X on the top of it, and it said Malcolm X on the back of it, as if I was a supporter of Malcolm X. But I just really liked how it looked. Not an Eddie Bauer supporter, no. not a big supporter of Malcolm X either, but I wore it, and my parents were probably like, "What the hell is the matter with this? What did we do? Like, how did we mess up with this kid so badly?"
Well,
and
so you probably shopped. You probably shopped. You probably shopped at Tractor Supply or what?
You mean for clothing?
Yeah. In Nicktown.
Oh yeah. Yeah, a lot of Lee jeans and things like that. And I mean, I was like, I wasn't a super, maybe some Wranglers, but what I would do is buy, like, Lee jeans were never fit the way I wanted them to, but it's probably the only thing I could afford to buy. But what I would do at the time, like, tapered leg jeans were the big thing. If you had anything that looked like a bell bottom at a particular time, you were like so dated, you just look like an idiot. And so I would actually have my mom cut the bottom part of the jeans and sew them back together so that they were tapered. And I think about this now and I'm like, oh, that makes me it breaks my heart for myself. I was so pathetic. Why I would feel the need.
You definitely are younger than me. So, like, bell bottoms, like, I remember it was a big deal if like you couldn't see your toes, like they had to be so big that you couldn't. And I remember I'd run up the stairs and my foot would get caught in my bell bottom, and I'd like trip and fall. We had
Oh,
star jeans. Those were the big things. You had to have it was a special kind of jean that had a star in the back pocket and the right pocket.
mm,
But then, like overnight, Levi 501s came in, and that's when the straight legs came in, and then it just got thinner and thinner from that would have
thank
been from
God.
like 8th grade all the way
Oh,
till like by the time I was a senior, it was like peg leg, with the
mm,
long pointy wing tips, So that's when I
yep.
got sort of quasi goth and had the mullet and
Thank
was
God for
really
Levi for doing that,
yeah.
saving us from the bell bottom
Well,
fashion.
that was kind of the
Terrible.
preppy phase, though. See, so I don't know. I mean, I guess that stuck around for a while. I remember Oxford, like Izod Oxford shirts, pinstripes, untucked with the, you know, But you would have been, yeah, you would have been a little behind me. So you would have come. The straight-legged jeans would have been in full force by the
Oh
time you
yeah,
were in high
for
school.
sure.
Yeah,
Well, yes, in the culture at large, they were. In my
yeah,
family, we were still passing down genes from like 10 years ago, so
yeah. Right. Oh, my poor kids. Yeah, there's some cargo pants that we still pull out every once in a while from the late 90s, early 2000s.
there's just so
That,
many bad it's hard for me to imagine someone was like, yeah, this is really going to look good. This is going to look good on somebody. Yeah, they just don't.
yeah,
And then it recycles. It keeps recycling. It's not like
I know.
we haven't really invented anything new. It's just kind of regurgitating the same
Yeah.
stuff over and
So
over
that's
again.
that's why, in fact, when you and I met, like you were still wearing the big sort of plumbery. You had the kind of the second wave bell bottom, they were kind of like they were wide from the hip down, not from the knee down. Like the 70s, it was like thin and to the knee, and then it flared, right?
Yes,
But in the
right.
90s, it was kind of like it was baggy all the way down, and you would have the shredded jeans. Like this would have been 2005, and you'd have the big oversized flip flops. Do you remember that?
Yes. Straight
Yeah,
out of Denver, man.
yeah, yeah. And I was like, wow. I just wore my Eddie Bauer stuff, and you just made fun of me.
That would have been my album. If I made a rap album, it would have been straight out of Denver.
Oh, that's hilarious. All right. Well, hey, our topic is things. Should things return to normal? So we,
What is, gosh, what is normal, man? What is normal?
well, I don't know anymore. But there's talk about Pennsylvania opening up on May 8th, whatever that means. It'll be gradual, but so I've been thinking about this, and I don't know about you, but it's like it seems to me like there's obviously I'm anxious to get back to normal too. Um, being able to go out, and I know people want to get back to work, and people want to come back to mass, and experience our faith in a more incarnational way. But I think there's just some cool things that have happened during this time that I don't think should go back to normal. So I thought it'd be kind of fun to maybe catalog some of those things. Like,
Absolutely.
what have you noticed? What have I noticed? So one of the things I would start with, which is kind of appropriate for what we're doing right now, is just I think it's almost kind of funny how, in some ways, especially within the church, social media is actually being used to create community and social connection. Have you noticed that?
I have. And I would also say that, like, for me, working in ministry in the church, we had sort of a social media format that was very loosely used, like occasionally posting on Instagram or sending out a tweet here and there about something we were doing. Mostly what we used it for was advertising the in-person gatherings that we were doing. So I do feel like one of the positives about this is that it sort of forced our hand a bit, because the alternative is that we don't maintain any connection with people. And so definitely doing a lot more, exploring what it's like to do ministry over Zoom, and the different tools that you can use with that, breaking people into small groups. Like, I will say that it most definitely does not take the place of it in any way, shape, or form. But in terms of maintaining a basic connection, for those who want that and participate in it, I think it has been really beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. When I was teaching at the Augustine Institute before, we had this tool which people know about, although it hasn't been working well in these circumstances, but Big Blue Button, which is a video conferencing. And when I had distance education students, I had a mandatory live conferencing session that they had to attend. And I remember I was struck at that time by how much you could sort of resemble an actual class that's live and in person. I mean, it's never quite the same. It can never be. But I was really surprised at the kind of sense of community that the distance education students could have by coming together during those times. And what was neat about it is that because everybody was so spread out across the country, you could actually develop these friendships with people that were actually not, living in your same town or whatever. And so I always was struck by the fact that I just don't see that. I never would see that happen in any other context except for this, and in fact, to be honest with you, the other faculty members didn't do that. So it's been kind of neat to see, there's been meetings and there's been, faith formation experiences. There's been you've been doing, some of the youth ministry stuff. Like, how's that gone for you? Like doing some of the youth ministry stuff online. I mean, pluses and minuses. I know it hasn't been perfect, perfectly ideal, but.
Well, I would say, so like breaking it down into pluses and minuses, the pluses for me is that, again, it's an ability for me to maintain like a growing relationship with a young person that had already started. And because I'm so much about face-to-face and being able to read people's body language and understand like if there's hesitation, if like sharing or not sharing, and being able to cue in on those things whenever we're face-to-face. So at the very least, I the plus is that it does give me the ability to see them, to make contact, to just find out how things are going with their life. And we can even, whenever we break into small groups, we actually do have some really good discussions about the content and the material that we're covering. So it has allowed that to still happen on some level. Again, the minus for me is that I think what I'm seeing is there were people that were engaged in our youth ministry on a spectrum. There were those that, they would come every single week and they were totally into it and they would get pumped up about it, about being there. And then you had the ones that were there maybe because their friends were there or they liked maybe the social scene about it. And so what I've discovered is that as we've moved into this purely online thing, we are only really seeing those ones participating that were bought in 100%. Like the ones that haven't, it's almost like this format is just, it's not enough for them,
and that's telling though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just something about the importance of the actual physical human contact that people need.
Right.
But I think the other thing it shows is that when you have a community, social media can really be a social medium where you can really continue to foster and cultivate community through a digital medium.
Absolutely.
But it isn't sufficient. So it's not enough. It can't ever substitute or replace for it. But I think the thing that I always sort of regret is that, like, I just laugh, like my kids, they have a phone, but it's not a phone. Like, it isn't a phone. It's a texting device, or it's a tweeting device, or it's like, I call them up and they're like, hello. I'm like, hey. He's like, yeah.
They've
have no idea
the function of it.
Yeah.
Wait, what am I supposed to do?
Exactly. It's like, okay, turn your phone the other way. It is, it's a phone. And there's certain etiquette and there's a certain, and it's funny because the primary use of this thing. So it's like, it's a device that's not a socializing device for our kids. They thumb through feeds. and
Well,
they thumb through the feeds in the presence of other people.
right.
But what I think has been a great breakthrough, it's like, I hope people will stop and pay attention to this and say, this is important. Social media is a great tool for having social connection with people, and that's what it's primarily used for. It should be used for, is to build
Right.
community and a sense of connectivity. And I do see that, like with Facebook, I think it's an older generation tool now. So my wife's on Facebook all the time, but she really has connected with a lot of people that otherwise she would have no contact with. And she's going back and forth, sharing ideas, sharing pictures and different things. And I think that's good. But especially with younger generation, I think some of these experiments have been maybe a good way for, I hope, people to see, hey, you can build community if you use these tools in the right way. And unfortunately, necessity has forced us to that, but maybe we'll keep it after Corona subsides a little bit.
Yeah, I would actually, I mean, I would love to still have some type of weekly check-in online that we do, because I do think it's really valuable, and it's like different people are reacting to it in different ways. Like some of my kids, my two daughters who are in high school, they are so over this kind of thing. Like they are just so gearing to get out and meet. They like clandestinely meet with friends in parks, and they need that face-to-face stuff. But I've had students on our Zoom meetings and our Zoom gatherings that in a face-to-face context would never speak up, but because I think maybe they sense some kind of safety that, there's a screen in front of them, and it's, that they are they're much more willing to share and talk over the screen than they would be in person,
Yeah,
which I find fascinating.
That is fascinating. But it's also, what you said is also fascinating, is that there's a hunger and a desire to be so clandestine and rebellious.
Yes.
And go sneak out and meet with friends. I used to do that as a kid all the time. The sneak part of this fun was the sneaking, of course, but it taps into something that's very fundamental, which is we have a desire to be with people, right? And to have a sense of connection and community, and we really need that. And I think social media, there's an irony in this, and the irony is that we have the deepest need we have is for that sense of real, sort of body-to-body contact, where we're really in the real presence of one another. But ironically, social media, under the circumstances of social distancing, has focused us to use social media to draw nearer to each other. And that's the thing. I just hope that we don't forget this lesson. I hope that we pay attention and are aware of the fact that this is revealing something about the most basic human need that we have, and a proper way to use a tool in a way that's humanizing rather than dehumanizing, which is what we typically see, which is like, if your daughters are sneaking out to meet up with friends in the park, then when they're in the park over the summer, they shouldn't be swinging on the swing together, looking at their Twitter accounts or their Snapchat or whatever. They should be talking to each other. They should have that same desire to hang out with each other in person as they do right now when they're being forced into social isolation. So it's fascinating.
Just you saying that, it makes me kind of shake my head at how strange that is, because going back to the question, going back to normal, what does normal look like for people? And I think for many people, the normal before this all happened was like a very fragmented kind of life. They had their work life, and then they had their online life, and they had their school life, and they all these like fragments of life. And I think for a lot of them, and even for my daughters, like before this all happened, my gosh, my wife and I would constantly be like, why don't you engage with somebody, like instead of just sitting there staring or trying to juggle 5 different text conversations with people.
Right.
Why don't,
Right.
yeah, I mean, they weren't busting down the door to go out and hang out with friends in the park before that happened. So it is kind of a worry of mine that I feel like people, maybe there was a couple of weeks of the novelty of this, which was kind of neat and interesting, oh, we have to like segregate ourselves into our homes, and that kind of a thing. But I think like there's always this hope in the back of people's minds, like I'm just waiting, I'm enduring this so that I can go back to what it was before. And I hope that doesn't happen. Like I really feel like this whole thing is God's way of saying, like, you guys should really be taking a closer look at your priorities, how you spend your time, like those kinds of things. And to slide back into like how it was before this all happened would be kind of a sad disappointment for me, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. Family is another thing that families have been forced together. And of course, let me make this caveat that I know that we hear on the news that things like domestic violence have gone up and people's psychological, mental health has declined. And,
right.
and certainly there's people that are in dysfunctional and broken situations that this situation is going to make it worse. Okay. But for, I think so many people, families being together, bringing work and home back together again, like it has been for most of human history. The Industrial Revolution is what separated the home from the workplace. And it's been interesting for me, for example, my work has become a family affair to some extent. So I don't have an office at home. And so I'm always having to negotiate space where I am, which I think is important because my kids need to know it's like what I do is not inconsequential to this family because I leave every day normally.
Yeah.
And it's out of sight, out of mind. It's like, no, I spend every single day working because I'm trying to provide for this family, And oh, by the way, you are going to clean your plate. You're not going to leave half of your salad on your plate because who knows how bad this could get, and who knows what, like when we try to get groceries, we don't always get what we buy, like what we want to buy. We can't even always get we might not get salad next week. So eat it.
Yeah.
And, things like that, or just being together more. And, obviously the upside of that is that is more together time is, I think, good as a family. But the downside is that you have to learn a lot of human virtues being with each other in that capacity, in that tight space. So it's, and the other thing too that's happened, I just have to throw this out there too, is that I hate to say this, but before people were viewing, media content like shows, TV shows, Netflix and whatnot, by themselves in their rooms, but they're so tired of being in their rooms by themselves that my kids have been coming together and watching shows together. Gosh, a family watching a movie together. The same movie.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. It's a revolution. I can't believe it. It's we're going back in time 30 years.
Yeah. I laughed earlier because, I do architecture on the side. And so I do have a little nook in my house. That's my office. And you're saying that like your family, it's kind of, I forget how you mentioned it, but it made me think how when I work from home, my wife kind of thinks that my time at home is like completely interruptible, like, so she'll be like, oh, you're working from home. It's not real work, like,
right.
Take the garbage out right now. Like I'm in the middle of a conference call, and
right.
So that's kind of funny.
Well, I've been going around all my house like I'm going to be on a Zoom call, no streaming,
yes,
the next hour, and then everybody's like, what? And it's like, but it's like, it's time to go out and pull in the crop. It's the same thing. It's just in a different time. It's like, it's time to bring in the crop. Nobody's doing anything else. Everybody's all hands on deck. Yeah. So and that's good. Like family.
I love it.
Family and work should be one thing. It shouldn't just be dad or mom and dad that go out to work and the rest of the family is living in gravy, but it's like, it's like we all have to do our part. And, everybody's, some people are out of work and been laid off and that people that wouldn't ordinarily be used to or accustomed to that kind of thing. And so that's hard, but it's a good learning experience. It helps people say we can't take anything for granted.
Yeah. And in a way, I think it would be, I hate to say this, but because even I crave some level of comfort that I had before all of this, but I do think that it almost needs to be extended to make it the new norm for people, because I totally agree. The one thing I hear from parents all the time is, I love that this is like, I'm spending a lot more time with my kids. Like we're playing games, we're doing things as a family, we're whatever it might be. We're taking walks around the neighborhood.
My kids are walking the dog.
Stuff that they never
Right.
did before, right?
Yeah.
And but I feel like we're still just on the tip of that iceberg of how beneficial and beautiful that is. And I don't like, if things changed immediately back to the normal right now, I don't think that would have staying power. Like I almost feel like it has to be something where people are like, well, it's probably not going to go back to normal. So this is going to be our new regular. And because it's amazing. Like even within my family and my wife, we homeschool. So our kids, this hasn't really changed our day-to-day reality too much because our kids are pretty much always at home, except for the two older girls. But even having them home more often, we eat almost every meal together because they're not running to musical or sports or whatever it is.
Yeah. It's amazing. We've been able to do evening prayers after dinner.
We haven't mastered that one yet. Still have way too many
we were so religious about it. And then as soon as the kids entered high school, of course, all the activities were right to dinner hour. So it just blew out family prayers. Like it was a fight every week to try to find some time to do that. And since this happened, like we've been able to eat together as a family every night, and we've been able to say prayers right after family time. And we're not the best, most perfect and holy prayers when we come together as a family. It's a million distractions, but who cares? We're doing it, right. And there's some regularity to it again. And it's like it makes me so aware of how much our modern lifestyle encroaches on things that are so fundamentally good for us.
Right.
And you have to you can't win almost. Like how do you beat that schedule back? When I was a kid, sports were from 3:00 in the afternoon until 5:30. I was always home for dinner every night. Now it's all the activities are until 7, 8 o'clock at night, from 3:00 until 7 or 8 at night. And it's just crazy. It's back and forth. And we need to stop and say, isn't there a way to do this? But the other thing I want to say is, on what you were saying, is that I hope that I do think it needs to last for the sake of learning a lesson here. I think, more time would be helpful. Although I don't know if we could overcome the inertia that we've established ourselves in.
Right.
But I do think that what I'm hoping, and this is part of the reason I wanted to address this topic today, was just like, I think we need to pause and say, what has been of value and what has been good for our humanity in this moment? Because that's what God is trying to say to us right now. We can look at this and focus on it from the standpoint of inconvenience, or what the government's doing or not doing, or, what our fears are around getting sick and people who are dying, etc. But I think the most important question we can ask ourselves in a circumstance like this is, what is God trying to show us about our humanity, and how can we embrace what's most fundamentally human in us so that we can really live a fulfilling life and not be so beholden to the patterns of social existence, which are really at the end of the day just dysfunctional. They stress us out. We don't like them. We complain about them incessantly, and it's within our power to do something about it, but we never do. And so here we are being forced into a new situation, and my hope is like, can we stop and say, we can do this on purpose? We can actually choose to live this way as a people if we decide and realize all the good and all the benefits and fruits that are coming from this time of lockdown.
Yeah, and I think that point, the last point to me, is probably the most important, and the one that I think about a lot in ministry, is how to reinforce when I hear a parent telling me the positives that they're discovering about this, how to make that stick to them, like, because maybe it'll go on for a lot longer, or maybe it'll only go on for a month, and things will change kind of back to some sort of what it was before. But it's like, how can we ingrain in people or impress upon people the things that they're realizing that are such benefits of this? Like, those are things that you can still continue, and that just, gosh, just the importance of impressing upon them the understanding of those things, and then to keep working at maintaining those things.
Yeah. No, I mean, absolutely. And this is, I think too, like, this is the gospel, right? This is what it means to live as Christians in the world. When we talk about our faith being incarnational, I think sometimes we think about that as a concept, but we're not aware of what it means to live it out as a reality. And it's like all these things that we're mentioning, like, this is an incarnational faith. We're becoming more aware of and being more intentional around the things that are really elevating and lifting up our humanity, and especially in the context of faith. So things like praying together, things like, people miss the sacraments. I think it's interesting. I think Father Jay was saying that that there's been a kind of increase or an uptick in Mass attendance, which I think is interesting because it's happening through kind of the streaming of the Mass. Now, hopefully that is not something we want to remain. That's not something we want to become the new norm.
Right.
But so the irony of it is that those who went to Mass all the time are really missing being physically present in the liturgy. And that's a good thing, because we should be way more conscientious of being at Mass when we're there. Yeah. And only when it's taken away from us, does it seem to be the case that we become more conscientious of that. But likewise, people who are choosing not to go to Mass during this time are now, it seems, wanting to connect with their faith more deeply, because this is troubling and upsetting and stressing to their life, and it's making them think more deeply. And it's like, yeah, this is why we have Mass. This is why we have a community of faith. We need the wellspring of our religion and our spiritual life to help us deal with the real reality of life, and to get beyond the kind of delusion of security and comfort and, everything's fine, the wind's always at my back. And it's like, God has barely pulled on a string here, and the whole web is collapsed.
Oh yeah.
We're
so fragile.
Oh, we are so vulnerable. And it's like, and that's why we have faith. That's why we have a relationship to God, is because that is the fact. That's the most basic, brutal fact of human existence. And just because we in America happen to live in a situation where we feel very insulated from that and protected, it's good for us to say, no, actually, we're very vulnerable. What we see happen in other parts of the world could be going on in our life with the snap of a finger. So let's be grateful. Let's be
Amen.
attentive and pay attention, and learn from this experience.
Absolutely.
So,
well,
one of the real quick, the other thing I just wanted to mention, and I wanted you to talk about it, is just, I know you've been on the food line down in Ambridge, and you've been working, and I've just seen this huge outpouring of social outreach, which I love. It's one of my favorite things about the Catholic faith, is that we have such a robust social consciousness and desire to reach out to the poor. But not a lot of people have experienced it, but so many people are signing up and giving now. And I think that's a change. That's a life-changing experience to care for the poor. So can you share a little bit about your experience? Because you've been doing more than I have. I've done some of it, but you've been kind of like almost every day, right?
5 days a week I'm there. So, gosh, where to start? I think that there were phone calls or conversations in the Ambridge area that took place shortly after kind of the self-imposed quarantining thing was brought on. And I think it really began with the student meals. So the school provides, I don't even know how many hundreds of meals for students that normally would get free lunches and stuff. And so we just reached out and said, hey, we'd love to be a distribution point for that. because they still need it. And there were organizations that were willing to help put that together. And so we're working with things like the YMCA of Beaver Valley, and they have a group of volunteers there that help to bag up these lunches, and then they bring, I think something like 200 or 250 meals to us at Good Samaritan in Ambridge. So that's just one part of it. But then whenever people were picking up their lunches and we're realizing that a lot of people in the most like vulnerable jobs were losing them immediately, and they're like, can we get some emergency food for the next 3 days? So Cindy DeShane, the director of formation down there, she decided that she was going to put a word out to people to donate food for an emergency food pantry, and that has exploded. I couldn't possibly tell you how much we are giving out each day, but it is from 11 to 12, it is a constant stream of cars with families that just need some basic help. And then we've gotten parishioners from John and Paul to jump on board, and they're making connections with Costco and other places that are donating frozen foods. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And it's incredible to see how quickly people can step up and make things happen for other people. There's a family in Ambridge whose home is in some radical disrepair, and we're forming a team of people to assess that, to almost make that a mission trip kind of experience, perhaps, where we spend a week just helping to bring their house up to a condition where basic things like their doors are sealed, they can close their front door, they can patch their roof so it's not leaking. And so it is incredible how quickly people will jump to help other people out. I think one of the most important things from observing this, though, that I really want to, that I would love to see happen is, how can it be clear to people, like, this is the Catholic Church reaching out to help you, not like, oh, we're going to teach you about transubstantiation or like stuff like that, but what sets us, like, how can people see us in action, and it sets us apart from any secular organization that's giving out food? There's got to be something, because, to be honest with you, a lot of the people that are coming through there, I think, suffer from a spiritual poverty also, right, that I know the church could address and could help to transform their lives. But that's really the tricky part, is like, okay, we've done the basic physical need stuff. How can we think of a way or get it out there that we have more, like, there's more about us as an organization, as an institution, a church, that we can help them in way more than just giving food to them.
Yeah. I mean, it makes me think of a couple of things. One is on the one hand, there's a tremendous display of solidarity, with people in need, which is a core value or virtue of the Christian life. Right. Is that's who we are. That's what defines us, is that we are in solidarity with the most vulnerable people. And we always have to be in that modality, not only when there's a crisis, because the reality is that there are people whose lives are in crisis all the time, but we just don't know about it because it doesn't raise to the level of social crisis, right? It's an individual or a familial crisis. But we have people in our community all the time that are in this kind of desperate need. And as a community of faith, one of the most important things that we can do is be Christ to people like that. But the other side of that, to your point, is that the needs of the body are not the primary good that we are in service to. That we have to find ways to draw people to Christ, who is the reason and the motivation for why we would want to care about people's material needs. Right. Because most people don't, like, that's what motivates us. It's the love of Christ. And so if we don't share that love of Christ and help people know Christ in a spiritual way, then we really haven't finished the job, so to speak. Like, we haven't finished building their house or repairing their house or whatever. We have to really, and so I was talking to Cindy yesterday, because I was, handing out some meals yesterday, and I asked her, it's like, why, like we got access to the towers down in Conway. And I've always wondered, like, why don't we have ministry going on in there? And say, well, you can't get in. And it's like, hey, guess what? I'm thinking to myself, I didn't say this to her, so if she watches this, but I'm thinking to myself, well, we got in because we had a reason to. Someone did kind of reach out. I do recall her saying that, and Father Mike and a team of people got access, got in there, and then were able to make contact with some people that could then know how to communicate to us. But what I love about that is that where there's a will, there's a way. Like we are determined to find a way to help people in need because we feel the pressure of the moment right now to help people. But we have to feel that pressure every day, every week, every month, every year, because that's who we are as the people of God. Yeah. And all the money that's coming in, all the food that's being donated, there is enough, just in our parish territory, there is enough need to be able to have to do that all the time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
And to be that bridge to people. So that's another thing that I really just hope doesn't go back to normal. I hope that we don't just, we may not be able to carry on these ministries in exactly the same way. I mean, we have to adjust to the changing circumstances, but I think we have to be just as diligent and eager in reaching out into the community and saying, hey, how can we serve you? Like we're doing this phone campaign too in the parish where we're reaching out to people, talking to them. I was talking to Marcia Sabados, who was telling me that, she's had some great conversations with people, praying with them, letting the church know that they're there. And, that's a great thing.
Yeah. We have somebody in the Valley doing that also, which is, I love it. And that's not an easy job to do, to sit there.
It isn't. I bailed.
Yeah.
I have to be honest with you. The cold calling thing is not my bailiwick, but there are people that are really great at that.
Really
and
good at it. Yeah.
there are people that are very responsive to that.
Right.
There are people that get angry and hang up on you, but there are people that really, really do respond to that. And so again, it's just that sense of solidarity.
And it's so basic and simple too, it's serving a basic need of reaching out to somebody and saying, hey, we're thinking about you. Is there some way that we can help you with anything? Like, it's so easy. And yet we overlook it so often as something, as part of our regular way of being in the church. But so
yeah.
Go ahead.
No. Go ahead.
Well, I was gonna. First of all, how long do we do this? Tell me that.
Oh, I don't know. I think we should probably wrap it up here. It's been.
So I was gonna ask you.
40 minutes, something.
Sorry, I dropped something. Okay. So this is really kind of a basic thing, but it also goes along the lines of my comment about spiritual starvation in people and people having this greater need to awaken the spirit in them. Sometimes they're aware of that. Sometimes they don't even know what they don't know. And so I did want to give you the opportunity to kind of talk through what this, because I know that that's something that you're specifically focusing on. You are really, really gangbusters about evangelizing people and helping people to explore and just unleash their like the things that God has gifted them with, and discovering that in ways that not only can they help other people, but they can also just transform their own lives through that, their families. And that whole thing is wrapped up in this project that you're doing. So talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks to Lee for making this cool slide. So you can see in the upper corner, the preambular group. So so I started a nonprofit this last summer, really dedicated to the new evangelization. And I think the main goal is, we're all called to be part of the new evangelization. And in order to do that, we really have to be disciples of Jesus and really follow Jesus along the way of discipleship. But I think for a lot of us, we don't really know what that means. So I'm, maybe we're accustomed to going to church and attending the sacraments and things like that. But what I'm really trying to do is create opportunities for Catholics to grow deeper in their interior life, what goes on the inside, because that's really the wellspring of what goes on out in the world. So it's the faith that we have in our hearts. It's the hope and the love that we bear in our souls. That's what really motivates us to go out and transform the world. But yet, if we don't cultivate that interior life, if we don't grow and in Christ, then that doesn't happen like it should. So Preambula Group is launching some programs, and the first one, people might have seen a little email that went out yesterday. Thanks, Ange. Called Discipleship Forum, and we're launching a cohort just in a couple of weeks, and we're looking for some willing people to sign up for that. But I'll be running probably 4 or 5 of these cohorts between now and the end of the year, and I'd really love to see members of the great grouping really jump into that. There's so much potential and so many great things going on here in the great grouping, and it would be so wonderful to have some people jump into the programs, and just people who really want to go deeper in their life as a disciple of Jesus and understand the spiritual life and prayer and find deeper healing from the grace of God and things like that. These are some of the topics and themes that we'll deal with in the Discipleship Forum. And there's another program called On Fire, which will be Scott, you've led a couple of On Fire cohorts. And we'll hopefully be leading some more in the great grouping. And then there's a third program which we'll launch in the fall called Missionary Catholic, which is for people that have come through the On Fire program who really want to go out there and bring the love of Christ to other people out in the world, primarily outside the parish precincts, And that's an art, and that's something that takes time and formation, and it's not always so comfortable, But there's a way to learn how to grow into that capacity to be a missionary in the world. So that's what Preambula is. You'll be hearing more and more about what we're doing. Those of you who went to the Abby Johnson thing, you saw the video launch, which the video kind of had some technical difficulties. Ha ha ha! Yeah, I know, it was funny, but the video is on the website that was just posted there, and so you can actually see it and sign up and get involved in our network, and so you'll be hearing more about us. So thanks for asking.
I love it because so much of what you're doing, it speaks to the journey of my life. For so much of my life, I was a person that went through the motions. I had a good foundation, but it had no real personal meaning to me. It was something very external. And then through mentorship and through experience the community of other people who I was just drawn to because they were there was something about their just the way that they lived that attracted me. And but I didn't really understand it. And then as we built friendships and that mentoring happened, it ended up changing my life, and so. And now, of course, I'm 100% bought into a relationship with Jesus and his church, and I love it, and I can't get enough of it. But I love the fact that you are intentionally putting into play this sort of path for people to get there from point A to that point where they're out there in the real world, which is where most of disciple making happens anyway. Most of what we do as Catholics shouldn't really happen in the church. It should be happening out there.
Right.
But we sometimes we forget that. And so our army of people right now that's out there doing that stuff is relatively small compared to what it can be.
Right.
And, that's what's super exciting to me about it.
Yeah. And that's why, it's a preambula. People are like, what does that mean? It comes from the Latin preambula fidei, which is the preambles of the faith, of the seeds of faith that God plants in the human heart. And it also is the same root word for ambulare, which means to walk. And so Christianity is a way. It's a path that we walk. It's a journey that we walk in imitation of Christ. And Christ came into the world in order to save the world. And so we're called to go into the world to help advance and continue the saving work of Jesus Christ. But it's hard. I mean, I'll be honest with you. It's not not always the most comfortable thing to do, especially in our world today, which is so beholden to the ethic of tolerance and not judging people. And it's like, oh, I don't want to impose my faith on people.
And
but
comfort, yeah, like
yeah,
just speaking of just total comfort and right.
yeah. So, but there are really, really beautiful, powerful, and effective ways to share your faith with people that isn't off-putting.
Yes.
And a big part of it is honestly is when your interior life really is on fire, it just exudes out of you. It just comes out of you. You don't even have to it just comes out of you because
Yes.
it's so much a part of who you are. And and I think that when we go along that, even if you look in the Gospels, the disciples went along it was a process for them. It didn't happen overnight. And even we just celebrated this, but and we're kind of in that stage right now seasonally in the church where the apostles are sort of in the upper room. They're kind of afraid. They're afraid to go out there because of, what people might think of them, because of what could happen to them if they're too outspoken. And so, but when the Spirit came at Pentecost, that changed everything, and it gave them this energy. And the Spirit is really the love of Christ. That's what in our theology, the Spirit is the love between the Father and the Son. So when that Spirit gets to work inside of our hearts, it becomes a powerful transformative agent in the world through us. And we don't have to be manipulative. We don't have to be pretentious and off-putting to try to grow the faith. We just have to be joyful, on fire, enthusiastic lovers of Christ.
Yes.
And people will be drawn to that because it's attractive. That's what we're really, Preambule Group, we really want to give people that experience to be able to come alive in that way.
I just want to just quickly reinforce the truth of what you just said, and I get to see it because I'm in the trenches working in that kind of a situation with adults who help volunteer on my core team and with teenagers, and I can't reinforce that enough. Like that, I'm reading a book called Faith for Exiles, and it talks about how they do a lot of statistical analysis of Christians, especially young adults from 15 to 25. And what they've boiled it down to is that in the church, like the Christians that they talk to, 33% of them, they would label them as habituals. So these are people that maybe they're coming to church 3, even 4 times a month. And so they have some type of connection to it. But whenever it came down to really the nitty-gritty questions of, well, tell me about your relationship with Jesus, your prayer life, things like that, they got a little like squeamish about that kind of stuff. And then you have your 10% that they call resilient disciples. These are people that are like 100% bought in, and like, they're all in. And I think that group of people, the habituals, the potential to reach them and to give them something that can push them into that resilient disciple category. I mean, if we can even do that in a tiny amount, it's going to radically change the face of the world, really. Yeah. And so things like you're talking about, thing that I'm doing on fire with my core team, the transformation that has taken place with so many of them, because I did it with 15 of them from the beginning until now. You can tell they were the habituals that were just waiting for something to light that fire. And now the thing for me is, well, okay, how do I keep that going? What's the next step for them?
Yeah. Keep feeding it.
And that's
and it's mission. Mission is what feeds that fire, because when we get out and really serve others in the spirit of the gospel, that's what really keeps that fire hot and intense. And when we turn in on ourselves and get caught up in our bourgeoisie comforts of just self-serving whatever we do, it's not that we have to do a certain amount of that kind of thing. It's not like, it's not like those are evil things. But what really fuels the fire of a disciple is mission. That's why Pope Francis talks about being missionary disciples and not just disciples,
right? Because
those are the kind of disciples that Christ made. So anyway, this Corona time has been an incredible time for us to kind of maybe begin to rediscover and relearn what it means to be the body of Christ, to be disciples of Jesus, to be on mission, and out there trying to make a difference. So let us not, go back to business as usual or back to the normal. Let us carry forward the new things that Christ has brought to us so that we can continue down this path, because it's just been super exciting. And to see this parish, this parish grouping come alive in some really powerful ways. So
Absolutely.
all right. Cool. Well, thanks. So we'll be doing this every week. So tune in.
Yay.
Everyone. Yeah, this is fun. Scott, you and I have been wanting to do this for a while, and I guess it's my fault that
we'll make it happen. We'll make it happen at some
point. We're finally doing it. But yeah, this is cool. So okay, thanks. And
all right, man. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
See ya.